New Buddha-ware Dhamma Talks. Geoff Hunt presents a talk on some aspect of the Buddha's teaching.
Everyone, it's good to see you again. Today we were going to talk about something very basic. I don't know whether you've ever had the experience of someone who bounces up to you and says, "I hear that you are a Buddhist." And then the inevitable question that follows that is, and what is it that makes you a Buddhist? So what is a Buddhist? Well, let's not take the isms and the ists too seriously, because can lead you into a rather dogmatic mindset. Buddhism is not actually a word that is used in Buddhist countries. They use several words which are referring to mainly to the Dhamma, which is the teachings which one is meant to follow. So, Buddhism makes it sound like an ideology of some sort, the socialism, alcoholism, whatever. There's lots and lots of isms. We wouldn't want to just add Buddhism to that. So we could call in the, in the East they call it the Buddha Sasana, which means the Buddha's teachings, for example, or the Buddha Dhamma. I would prefer to use the term Buddha Dhamma. And then if somebody asks you, well, what is that? What are your beliefs? Now we get into another problem, because it is not belief based. It has some key concepts which it is inviting you to try out by following the instructions. If you don't follow the instructions, which are not mandatory, then there is in no way or in any sense at all are you a Buddhist. It's entirely based on your attitude to life and to everyday events. And at first we won't know what they are, and after a while it all starts to fit together. And really what it is a change in your attitude, a change in your behavior, a change in your understanding, a change in your orientation in life, something like that. Okay, so we just need to understand that. However, it is often said that the three gems or the three refuges are, say, the mark of someone who is following the Buddha Dhamma, because without that things would fall apart. We know that in a way it's very difficult to follow the Buddha Dhamma and the teachings, such as mindfulness or concentration or loving kindness. Not always easy to follow these. So we may easily get overwhelmed or pushed aside or push ourselves aside, or unwittingly just fall back into a humdrum approach to life in which one is just wandering, really, call it wandering through life. So the three gems help us to stay on course. Again, they're not beliefs. They're just reminders that give us just to remind us about the direction we are going in or working on going in. Now we could call them the three gems, which is quite common. That is Sri Ratna, or the three refuges. You see either of these or hear either of these expressions. If anything is a mark of a Buddhist, whatever a Buddhist is, then that would be it. Would be some sort of confidence in the three gems. Now the three gems are the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. So we need to just talk a little bit about each of these three. By the way, there is a large organization, Buddhist organization called Triratna, in which they have just borrowed the phrase three gems, which is a sort of popular Theravada movement, which is very large. Began in England, by the way, years ago, then moved to India, where it is now very large. The idea of three gems. Well, what are these three gems? Right, the Buddha. Now, how are we to understand that phrase that the Buddha is a gem? Well, I'm going to ask you basically, because that's what we could talk about in the discussion. What is your understanding of someone saying to you, well, the Buddha for me is truly a gem? Well, to give you some clues, something that's a gem is precious to start with. What does it mean for something to be precious? Something that you would want to be reminded of, to stay with you, that has value to you. All of that would be precious. But you think about it. What do we mean by saying that the Buddha is precious? Now, let's first of all, take cognizance of the fact that we already have a culture, and it's been here for a couple of thousand years, and it's called Christianity. So even if you're not a Christian, there will be a tendency to understand almost everything we're saying here in well-worn Christian terms. Now, that's not bad. If you want to be Christian, fine. That's also a choice. And by the way, my wife is a Christian priest, if you don't know that. And we live perfectly happily together. Okay, so the Buddha is a gem. The Buddha is precious. Well, it means it in a fairly obvious sense, actually. There's nothing mystical about it. It's basically that, I'm prepared to listen to what the Buddha had to say. You can also let go of it if you like. There's no compulsion. You're not a bad person if you don't take the Buddha to be precious. But if there's not an element of confidence in the Buddha, and also as a role model, in that he gave up everything to do one thing in his life, was to get to the bottom of human suffering. Not just the suffering of pain, but mental suffering, spiritual suffering. He devoted his life, 40 years of wandering, talking to wise people, and trying to live out a challenge to himself to find out what the answer to this question could be. And of course, the general answer is that he found that the answer was in himself. It was not outside somewhere. It was in his own reactions, responses to things. It's his beliefs, which perhaps he had never challenged. Of course, he was born into a culture and a religion of the time, which we now call Hinduism. And he did borrow from it in some ways, but he also challenged it. So, for me, this is not me telling you what something you should remember. This is just me saying, think about this, if you like, okay? And the question here is, what could we possibly mean by saying that the Buddha is a gem or is precious? What does that mean to you? If it means nothing, okay, it means nothing. Let's be honest, let's start from scratch. Right. The second is the Dhamma. The second gem or refuge is the Dhamma. Now, in Theravada Buddhism, we say Dhamma, D-H-A-M-M-A, whereas in Mahayana Buddhism of China and so on, we say Dharma with an R in it. But it doesn't matter, we're talking about the same thing. Now, the Dhamma, this is not an easy word to translate, and all Indian philosophies, religions, belief systems, whatever, refer to the Dhamma. It's very basic. So whether you're Hindu, Jain, whatever you are, the word Dhamma will come into your vocabulary. So the question is, what is the Buddha's Dhamma? What is the Buddha Dhamma? We can use it as one word. What makes it different from the other Dhammas? Okay, that's another question for you. What do we mean if we talk about the Buddha Dhamma? Now, not being an easy word to translate into English, I think that the nearest, which you probably wouldn't like the sound of, is something like the law of human life, the law. And in fact, it does have that sense of there being a law. Like in science, we talk of the law of nature. The Buddha is talking about the law of life, the law of human life, the law of your life as a human. Your life as a human, and what is important to you, and what are the key concepts you have in your mind as to what makes it all worthwhile, what makes it real as opposed to not real, etc. So you put all that teaching together and we call it the Dhamma. It's the law of human life. You may not find that translation of it, but anyway, it's my translation of it, so you can work with that. But the question for you is, what could we possibly mean by the law of human life? Is there a law of human life? Well, I think Buddha is saying that, yes, mindfulness reveals it. We have things arising in our minds all the time, which we can divide into two. There are negative things and there are positive things. Love for a child is a positive thing. Hatred of your manager is a negative thing. Now, becoming aware of where that law operates, that is your own mind, is a major breakthrough, believe me. You're not just a zombie following what everybody else does. You now realize that it's all working away in your mind. You can guide your own mind and your own life. And the law of human life is to be found where? In your mind. Not my mind, not in a teacher's mind, in your mind, right now. So that's the Dhamma. Sounds easy in a way, but it's not so easy to actually do because it involves questioning, examining what is arising in your mind. Okay, and thirdly, there's this other odd word, Sangha. Now, Sangha originally meant the monastic order. People who were monks and nuns. Their community was called Sangha. Now it's been expanded partly by Mahayana and other considerations, in where any community, any group of people that get together to understand and practice the Dhamma is a Sangha. So are we a Sangha? Is anybody a Sangha? Well, it doesn't really matter what you call it that much. We could call it a community. It's a community which thinks it's worth having a try at following the Buddha Dhamma. So that's a Sangha. That wasn't the original meaning, but that's the meaning we've got now. So, yes, we are a Sangha. As we sit here listening to each other, mainly me at the moment, it is a Sangha in action. We're trying to understand life, we're trying to understand my life. And is my life different from other people's lives? A lot of things there we wouldn't want to discuss. But we need to bring them into the open somehow, if we trust each other. So the three gems are the Buddha. Now, we'll just run through this again. The Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Now, given our cultural background, we tend to think of these as somehow belief systems or institutions. Strictly speaking, the Buddha Dhamma is not an institution. It's been turned into an institution, but basically it's not an institution. If it doesn't exist in your mind as an effort, then it doesn't exist at all. Okay. So the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. Now the Buddha, this is where we can get misled, is not the Son of God. He is not a prophet. He is not even, I would say, and people would disagree with me, I wouldn't say he was a guru. He was a teacher that really took being a teacher very, very seriously because he cared. He thought, what is all this suffering? What is all this suffering going on around us? How much of it are we responsible for it? What can we do about it? That's who he was. So, I was given a little of something we call the Buddha. We don't know what the Buddha looked like. We have no idea what the Buddha looked like. And also, I don't worship this. It's not an idol. It's, if you like, it was a gift from my mother. So that gives it some worth, but also it shows her love for me. So the way I see it is it's a reminder. It's just when I catch glance of it, I think, right, I'm following the Buddha Dharma. Not in a self-flagellating way, of course, just a gentle reminder. Like somebody who cares about you might remind you about something. Don't eat so much fatty food. If your loved one says that to you, they're saying it to you because they care about you, not because they want to make you look foolish. See what I mean? So that's a reminder. Right. What about misunderstanding the Dhamma? Well, the law of human life doesn't really capture it because there's a huge amount of freedom within the Buddha Dhamma. You have to work this out for yourself with guidance from others in the Sangha. So it's not ready-made. If it were ready-made, then we could get a nice fat book, put it all in there, and then just read the book. And when you get to the last page, now you're a Buddhist. You see, the best books in Buddhism are those which make it clear that this is a book of instructions. This is a book of things for you to do to bring about a change in your understanding. That's the Buddha Dhamma. Okay. So the Buddha Dhamma does not correspond, for example, to the Christian Bible. The Bible and the Quran are holy books. There is nothing in Buddhism which is a holy book, not a holy book. It's a book of guidance or a book of instructions. If you burn the book, it makes no difference. The real Buddhist doesn't mind if you burn all the Buddhist books. So we have to snap out of this idea that somehow if I've read the book, then somehow I know what it is. But if it hasn't changed me in any way, then it hasn't done anything. Not if it's a Buddha Dhamma book. It's got to have a lot of instructions and explanations of. Thirdly, the Sangha. Okay, that's how human life is. People drift in, they drift out. To start with, they're born, which is pretty much drifting in. We lead a life, and then we drop out again. It's the same with everything. So no surprise if we're realistic about what New Buddha Way is. It is not. It is, legally a charity, but that doesn't define it. There are thousands of such charities. So what is it? Is it a membership organization? I should join it. And I join it, well, what? When you buy a ticket or put some sort of mark on your forehead? No. It boils down to one simple thing. Are you following the instructions or not? If you don't want to, it's fine. We're not going to beat you up because of it. We will never bring any kind of violence or aggression into the Buddha Dhamma. You are not wrong if you don't follow it. You're just not following it. That's it, full stop. So there is no barometer by which to measure the success of, say, New Buddha Way. Is it by the number of people that are here today? Little button over there tells me 42. But then next week, maybe we'll have 32. And I might say to myself, well, where have those 10 gone? Did I say something wrong? Well, look, it's very simple. You're either here or you're not here. Same goes for me. I'm either here or I'm not here. That's how it works, okay? So it's complete freedom. There is no institution, and once it turns into an institution, which it has in some places, then we're drifting away from what we could be doing to enhance our understanding of our own lives. Okay, so the 3 gems Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha are what? They're guidance, they're a direction, there's something worth trying. And if it works a little bit, who knows, it might work a little bit more. But it's never to be held up as something which is perfectly right and which I'm going to beat you up if you don't believe in it. That is terrible. That is human beings going off the rails again. So this is a way of getting off the rails and finding the path which suits you and which is your path, but a path with a guide. Okay, so that's what we mean by, so why do we use the word refuges? This is something else you can think about. Why the 3 refuges? What is a refuge? Refuge suggests somewhere you go to be protected, maybe. To be protected, to be safe. Well, you think about it. I could tell you what it is, and then you could repeat it, but that wouldn't help. Why would we say that the Buddha Dhamma is a refuge? Well, we'll come to a discussion in a moment. Well, it's clear that I suppose it's fair to say that if I speak to someone about the 3 refuges and they're asking me about Buddhism, then I'm expressing a commitment. I'm saying that I have decided that I will give this a go. And if it works for me, I'll do more of it. So there's this commitment, but it's not the commitment of membership. Buddhism will have arrived when Buddhism no longer exists. Because at its heart, it is not an institution. If we think about the Dhamma, where do we start? Well, we've made it easier, or the Buddha made it easier for you. And that is what we call the 4 Noble Truths, what we call the Noble Eightfold Path. These are not written in gold letters. These are not things that you must believe in. That was never the intention. It's how do we understand what this transformation, this developed awareness means? How does it come about? Okay, well, we've got the 4 Noble Truths, helpful. A point will come where you just don't need to talk about that all the time. You've got the Eightfold Noble Path. Again, it's useful. It's like a walking stick. When you need a walking stick, you use a walking stick. When you don't need a walking stick, what fool is going to run around with a walking stick? So when you need the walking stick, you use the walking stick. When you need the Noble Eightfold Path, you use the Noble Eightfold Path. And it becomes natural to you just thinking that way sometimes, especially if you're speaking to someone that doesn't actually understand this or has not followed it. We could go into this question of what is a Buddhist, which is a misconceived question anyway, but I'm trying to answer it. Is that another way of approaching it is through the 5 precepts. So the 5 precepts: no killing things, no stealing stuff, no stealing taking any stuff that wasn't given to you, no sexual misconduct, no sexual misconduct. It doesn't say no sex, it says no sexual misconduct. No exploiting people over sex to start with. No speaking in an abusive, exploitative, harsh, hurtful way. And no alcohol or drugs. The one that people find most difficult, actually, is probably the alcohol. I don't know what it is about alcohol, but it shows it's really got a grip on us, even though it is harmful and is known to be harmful. But still, I'm not going to go on about that again. Now, again, what is our attitude to these 5 precepts? Well, if we're sort of playing with the idea of, well, what is this path? I would have to consider those as just a point of entry. Can I deal with those? Can I, well, the simplest thing, I remember I was at work one day and somebody came into my office, and after a while, completely out of the blue, they said, "Geoff, I've noticed something about you." I said, well, "What's that then?" He said, "You don't use swear words." With everybody else was using the F word, the C word, the N word, any kind of word. But I never did. I'd forgotten that I never did. Well, that's a little starting point. See if you can stop that. And there are lots of other words which are abusive. Calling a woman a bitch is definitely abusive, if you need an example. And there are lots of words for men as well, which are not very flattering. But we start with the little things, and we build up to medium-sized things, and then go on to bigger things. If we can't deal with the small things, how are we going to deal with the bigger things in life? So we work our way up, and we see the difference as we work our way up. Because when you stop swearing, just my example, okay, you feel a sort of freedom about that. I don't have to do what everybody else is doing. Okay, so there are five precepts. I try my best to live by the 5 precepts, and I'll come back to that another time. But we can also go on to 8 precepts, 10 precepts, or if you become a monk or a nun in Theravada, you will have 200 or more precepts. But now, you see, this is where we go astray again, because we think, why have we got all these rules? This is misunderstanding. These are not disciplinary rules. This is guidance. This is training. Here's an example of something you could train yourself with. Can you do it? Can you try it? Can you do it at all? Is it worth doing? Do you see the benefits of it? So they are not saying you will be struck by lightning if you use a swear word, right? They're for training you, for helping you along. They're little walking sticks. Okay, so no one's trying to, but we've been brought up in a culture in which we feel that in the past or until the recent times, we've been told what to do, told what is right, told what is wrong. And now here comes Mount Buddhism telling us what to do again. Well, it isn't telling you what to do. It's telling you what to try out. Make up your own mind. Okay. There is, again, as a reminder, a little chant which is used by followers of the Buddha Dhamma everywhere, which is often in Pali, Buddham Saranang Gacchami, which means to the Buddha I go for refuge. Dhammam Saranang Gacchami. To the Dhamma I go for refuge. Sangham Saranang Gacchami means to the Sangha, to the community I go for refuge. Especially important when things are getting very tough for you. You might find then, for yourself, that then nothing beats having friends and people you care about and people care about you. Really important. So this is a little chant that is said often in Pali. It sounds beautiful in Pali. And if you go to, well, let's say YouTube, okay? These things, some of these digital things are useful. And put in the 3 gems or the 3 refuges, you will probably find dozens, if not hundreds, of different versions of it in Pali and English. And some of them are really, really beautiful, actually. Really beautiful. And if you just listen for 5, 10, even 20 minutes, it will put you in a place of tranquility when you can think again about about your life. There's nothing wrong with your life. It's just the way your life is, because you're allowing it to be the way it is, or it's inclined to be. Okay. So I've given you some questions to ask there. Questions to ask yourself. And to make an observation about, think about the 3 gems. Do we need them? What do they mean? Can I do it? They're instructions. That's what they are, right? Let's not forget that. Everything is an instruction. Not a you must do, but try it. It's very gentle and very slow moving. There's no hurry about it. You're not going to get a certificate at the end of this. But it's just possible you might be happier at the end of it. Well, there is no end. It goes on and on and on, actually. Getting better and better. Okay, I'm going to stop. Pass you back to Lynn.
New Buddha way lets go of East and West and starts afresh in the life we have now. For more information, visit www.newbuddhaway.org.